Checking out the video. My name's Maya and I'm an online coach for women, helping you to develop a strong and curvy physique and a mindset to match. And today I'm going to talk to you about dieting. So generally when it comes to developing a strong and curvy physique, we're not so worried about dieting in the typical way of like being in a calorie deficit. But in order to sort of like be able to see the curves that we've built and to see a bit of definition, there are going to be phases that we want to be in a dieting phase. So of course, I'm going to be discussing dieting as well. And this is what I really love about strength training, because it really does help a woman to shift her focus from trying to be as little as possible, consuming as little as possible, being less than, and becoming something a little bit more substantial, taking up more space and just living life to the full and, not worrying about restricting all the time. So the biggest take-home message for today is if you don't want to diet forever, then you need to switch your focus away from dieting. And what I mean by that is that you need to understand that between your body and you, your body cares a lot more about your survival than it does care about your bikini body, okay? So you might be worried about abs and you might be worried about fitting into a dress that you wore when you were 22. But your body actually cares a lot more about your survival. It cares a lot more about your reproductive health. And it's going to do whatever it takes to protect those things. And ultimately, your brain and your body will win. It's a difficult one because when I talk about what I eat, as in, everything I eat in a day, what my eating habits are, that is what I would describe as my diet. But the word diet has kind of been associated with being in a calorie deficit. So for the purpose of this video, when I say diet, I'm talking about being in a calorie deficit. So what is it about dieting that is the problem? So every time you decide to go on a diet, you're essentially signaling to your body that there's a lack of available fuel, okay? So that's something that we're doing deliberately, but according to your body, all it knows is this is how much fuel that I need to operate optimally, and this is how much fuel I'm getting in. And your body will very quickly start to adapt to that. So that's why when you go on a crash diet and you drop your calories really drastically, you'll find that you lose a lot of weight very quickly, and then that weight will stall. And then what's really frustrating is that when you come off of that diet, you put the weight back on and some. And the reason why that happens is because your body very quickly adapts to the new level of fuel that it's getting. And it does that by down-regulating or reducing your energy expenditure. And it also does that by storing energy. And energy is stored as fat. Fat is literally the best form of stored energy that your body can create. So when your body decides that it needs to slow down your energy expenditure, it will do this by doing things like, reducing your energy levels. You'll literally not feel like doing anything. And that's your body's way of saying, I've only got a limited amount of fuel. And so I'm going to make sure that you don't spend too much energy. So you might just feel like everything's a bit of an effort. Things that you were doing before, even like walking up the stairs, they all seem to be easy for you before. And now you're getting to the top of the stairs, you're out of breath, you feel tired. That's your body's way of saying, I can't manage this level of activity on this amount of fuel. And of course, when it stores energy, we all know what that looks like. You're going to be storing fat, and it's going to be very difficult for you to lose. And it's going to particularly pack it on around your tummy, your mid and lower back, and your hips and your reproductive organs, because those are the crucial parts that your body wants to protect. And while dieting in the short term is not necessarily a bad thing, it's when you shift into those intense diets for an extended period of time, that's when you'll start to see a lot of metabolic adaptation, which we don't want to see. And when I talk about extended periods of dieting, I mean anything beyond 8 to 10 weeks. That is a period of time that you want to be focusing on being in a calorie deficit. That's a good enough amount of time to see a nice amount of fat loss without sort of shifting into that zone of slowing down your metabolism too much and sort of like getting into some of the symptoms that I'm going to discuss in just a moment. So dieting for extended periods, you might start to see things like your digestion slowing down, and that is not a good thing. And the way that might show up is like your appetite is reduced. So if you're somebody that says, oh no, I just don't really have much of an appetite, that could be an indicator that you've been dieting for way too long, and your body is now sort of like slowing down your digestion so that you can keep that food and absorb more nutrients than is optimal. So as well as like seeing your appetite be not as much as it used to be, You might start to be getting like food intolerances. There might be inflammation happening in the gut because the food is sitting in there for longer. That can lead to things like gut permeability. That can lead to things like food intolerances. So yeah, this is a factor about extended dieting, which you might not necessarily think, straight away, or extended dieting has done this to my gut. But yeah, that is definitely one of the things that extended dieting. Also, the energy levels, we touched on that earlier. If you're feeling like fatigued all the time, you just feel like you can't get enough sleep, you just don't have the energy to do the things that you used to like doing, that's a good sign that you've been dieting for too long a time. Looking at your stress levels, how resistant are you to stress? How tolerant are you of like everyday stressors? If you feel like you're getting overwhelmed easily and you're not able to keep up with the demands of your day, sort of feeling like you have to have some sort of release like every day because you just can't keep up with your daily schedule, that's another sign that you're just not giving your body enough fuel to keep up with like the basic demands of your schedule. And what you might also see is that you're not able to make decisions very quickly. Your mind, you can't sort of focus very well, you can't concentrate very well, because at the end of the day, your body is busy trying to keep itself alive. And I know that sounds dramatic, but let me just give you like an example. So your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, that's the amount of calories that your body needs to just get by. So literally just to function. If you didn't even stand up for the day, this is how many calories your body would need to sort of like just maintain itself. So say that number is 1,500 calories. And that, to be honest, that is not a very low BMR. That's a pretty average sort of BMR for a woman. As you'll see on the front of, all these magazines, all these celebrities, how they get into shape, they talk about diets that are around 1,500 calories, 1,500, 1,600, 1,800 calories. Now, add in your daily activity, so the calories that you burn from doing your daily activity, that's quite a deficit to be in for an extended period of time. So if you're only giving your body 1,500 calories and you're also doing daily activities, your body is literally going to prioritize all its bodily functions before it worries about executive function. So if you can't concentrate and you just feel like you're not as sharp as you used to be, that could be a good signal that your body is too busy spending that fuel on maintaining itself, and it simply doesn't have the excess energy to help you make executive decisions. And the last one that I'll talk about, and this is one I think everyone can relate to, is cravings and binges. I'm not going to go too much into the binge eating thing because that is quite a sensitive topic. To be honest, I'm not well read enough on it to talk about it in any sort of depth. But it's definitely something that I've experienced on my fitness journey. From being on a very low calorie, low carb diet, I've definitely had binges. And I don't think that's something that people are unfamiliar with. And when I'm talking about binges, I'm not just talking about, stuffing 10 donuts into your face at a time and then sort of like feeling to the point where you're feeling sick. I'm talking about that weekend, it's the weekend. And you feel like you're eating these junk foods and these sort of like highly caloric foods because it's the weekend and I'm relaxed and I'm enjoying myself. But that technically is a binge because you've been surviving on these few hundred calories from Monday to Friday, and come the weekend, you're essentially binging under the guise of it's the weekend. And that's no shade. Listen, I've been there. But one thing I will say is that when you start to eat enough and you start to eat at maintenance and you start to realize how much fuel your body actually needs, you're probably going to find that you just don't have that same desire to, do that at the weekend. So if you feel like you've literally got zero willpower at the weekend, that could be another indicator that you need to be eating a little bit more from Monday to Friday. So all that being said, diets aren't bad, but it's just a case of knowing that they're not a lifestyle. They're literally a tool that you're meant to use in a measured way on a temporary basis. And once that temporary period has finished, we are meant to return to a maintenance level or even be in a surplus depending on what your goal is. Now, how long you're going to be in that surplus or that maintenance phase is going to depend on what your goals are. So for example, if you do have a lot of weight to lose, I would still recommend that you only diet for 8 to 10 weeks at a time. But then you would just take a shorter maintenance stroke surplus phase, and we would call that a diet break. And that would last sort of like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you go back into a dieting phase again. So if you've got a lot of weight to lose, maybe you've got like a show or, you know, some event like a wedding or something, and your only focus is losing weight, and you've got like a number in mind and a sort of date that it needs to happen, then this might be an approach that you want to take. In terms of body recomposition, you definitely want to be spending a little bit more time in your maintenance and your calorie surplus phases to allow you to build that muscle. What's also going to happen while you're in this phase is you're going to be building your metabolism. So the idea is that every time that you do go back on a diet, whether it is after 2 or 3 weeks or whether it is, you know, a couple of times a year, the idea is that when you go back into that dieting phase, you're able to do so on a higher level of calories. And this is essentially the basis of reverse dieting. So what we're doing is essentially we're re-educating our metabolisms to maintain on a higher level, so that when we do start dieting again, we're able to keep our calories at a higher level and still get results. So if you do find that every time you diet you have to go back to the same low calories, or you have to go down to even less to get the same results, unfortunately that just means that you've spent far too long in a calorie deficit, and you need to spend a little bit more time in a calorie maintenance level or a calorie surplus. For you at that point is to stick at maintenance calories and work on increasing your metabolism from there. And in my next video I'll talk about how to do that, but I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for checking out the video, and I'll see you next time.